I think that's where traditional martial arts defeats the ego, and you don't have to be proving yourself all the time. And that's what I admire about the traditional.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is Whistlekick Martial Arts Radio, episode 692. Today's guest, Sifu Doug Setter. I'm Jeremy Lesniak. I'm your host here for the show, founder at Whistlekick, where everything we do is in support of the traditional martial arts. What does that mean, Jeremy? Go to whistlekick.com. That's how you're going to find out what it means. Whistlekick.com is our online home. It's the place we put links to everything, all the different things that we're doing, because there's a ton of stuff. One of the things is our store. It's one of the ways that we pay bills around here. And if you use the code podcast15, get yourself a hat, a shirt, a training program, some sparring gear, all kinds of stuff over there. So check that out. The show has a different website, whistlekickmartialartsradio.com. That's where we post transcripts and photos and videos and links and guest social media, all kinds of stuff over there. So if you like an episode, go there. You're going to catch some of that in the show notes of your podcast player, but it's not all there because we can't put all of it there. There's too much. Do you like what we do? Does it mean something to you? Does this connection, education, entertainment mission of ours targeting traditional martial artists worldwide, does that resonate for you? If it does, I'm going to ask you to do something, anything to help us out. You could buy something. You could join the Patreon, patreon.com/whistlekick. We got a ton of cool stuff going on over there. We've got our social media. You can follow that. You can share an episode. You want the whole list. If you truly love what we do, if you value us as an organization and our mission, whistlekick.com/family. Please go there. It is not linked. You have to type it in. We do that intentionally because if you're willing to jump over that hurdle, we give you some bonus stuff in there. And it's a whole list of all the things that we ask people to do. And maybe you can pick one once in a while. We update that page weekly to give you some incentive to come back. Okay. Sifu Setter, man, this was a little bit more conversational than most episodes. And I really enjoyed it. We had some great back and forth. Whereas most episodes, I'm talking, 3-5% of the time? I might have been talking 8 or 10% of the time on this one. So it still wasn't 50-50. It's not about me. But I felt like there were some points in here where we chatted and it rolled. It was a little more conversational. And I hope you enjoy it. I did. I got the sense that Sifu did. We talk about some pretty cool stuff. His life, his martial arts story is a little different, but I think you'll dig it. So here we go. Doug, welcome to Whistlekick Martial Arts Radio.
Hey, Jeremy, thanks for having me. This is really a humbling experience looking at some of your other guests. Wow, I don't know what I can contribute, but I'm looking forward to this.
How do you think I feel? I'm the one that has to interview him.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it's amazing. One thing I love about martial arts is I meet some amazing people.
Yeah.
Just amazing. I met, when I was in Hong Kong, I met Sheik Kent, who played the part of Mr. Han in Enter the Dragon.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, he's like 69 years old, just back in 82, just a sharp-looking guy, really fit. And, there's another guy, Carter Wong. I don't know if you watched any Chinese martial arts, but he was a dude, man. Back in the day, he was like for real fighter.
Mm.
I saw an article one time, he's ripping bark off a tree. So, oh my God, you just stay over there. I'll take your picture. Thank you, Mr. Wong. And
when you met the guy who played Han, was he carrying around like prosthetic hand attachments?
Exactly, yeah. And I told people that Mr. Han, man, the guy was like in 300 movies, and they don't pay a whole lot in Hong Kong. No. These dudes work hard, and this son of a gun, my gosh, he knew a ton of. Like at the time, I was studying a Tong, a praying mantis, and this dude knew a ton of. I was reading articles on him. He just knew a ton of martial arts. It's just fascinating to have that kind of, ability and commitment to train and yet appear in all these movies. So yeah, when he was that movie, Enter the Dragon, all those people were high end. Like Bruce Lee was the man, but all those, even the guy who beat up at the beginning, they were high end. They were like the cream of the crop at the time.
it's almost like, once in a while you'll get a TV series where almost everybody launches off to do
Right.
something else. And Enter the Dragon kind of seems like that. Everybody, you can look back at almost everybody that was in that film and say, here are the other 5, 10, 300 movies that this person was in.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy that they were all together in that one film.
I know. Can imagine putting that together. Just imagine that. I just amazed at everything from the logistics to seeing everything went into that.
Mm.
Like later on, I thought, wow, that was must have something else. That's phenomenal. Which
I have a theory about Bruce Lee movies, and early on when we did the show, I was a new interviewer, and I would follow the script. We sent you over the conversation starters, and I was new enough that I couldn't be organic. And so I would kind of go down the list. And if you go back, you listen to old episodes, I don't think they're as good. Some people like them. Some people say I did fine. I think they're being nice. But one of the questions was, do you have a favorite martial arts film? And as you might expect, quite a few people would name a Bruce Lee film.
Really?
But what I found was almost everyone's favorite Bruce Lee film was the first one that they saw.
Fist of Fury, I think.
Was that your first one?
I think that was Fist of Fury, and then something else. But yeah, it was a little cheesy, but it was good. It was cool.
So the question is, if that was your first Bruce Lee film, this is the test of the theory. Is it your favorite Bruce Lee film?
No, I still like Enter the Dragon because it just encompassed so much.
Sure.
So
you're maybe 4 or 5 who break the theory. It was because it started, I expected it with Enter the Dragon, and then people would say, Game of Death. That's my favorite Bruce Lee film.
Oh, right.
Okay. And so who knows how well that holds. How'd you get started?
Oh, geez.
It's the most basic question, but I think we got to ask it at some point.
I was sick as a kid. I had pneumonia 3 times time I was 6 because everyone smoked around me. I was always and then come teenager years, I didn't quite get the growth spurts, so I was fighting my way up the food chain, and I remember just constant fights in the neighborhood. I grew up in a place called Surrey, BC, and but it was consensual, like I found. But later on in high school, it was very mean, and I remember getting punched and shoved and choked, and so I went to this. My mother sent me to a place called Tracy's Karate, and they had these. Basically, they're a really hokey setup. My mom, I don't know what she paid back in those days, but it was a lot, and I went in, still got my butt kicked. Go home with bleeding nose, black eyes, and she dumped on me for wasting her money. And so one day, this guy, Trevor Walden, I'll never forget this guy, tall dude. And I remember every now and then he would just throw this kick out of nowhere, and he just said, "You know what, you should go to karate." So I went, started going to karate class, and it was still a struggle because I was physically weaker. I had a couple of successes, but I still got beat on. I got tired of it, so I joined the Army Reserves, and I got more into that no nonsense, fitness, maybe a little more of the warrior attitude. I remember going back to high school after summer training with, and I was getting lots of push-ups for making mistakes and that, so I sort of developed a little more aggression. And I remember this guy just making fun of me one time. And Rick Prizeman, who was a real thug, but he always never picked on me. He always kind of helped me. And he looked at me like, and so I walked up to this guy and I gave him a boot in the butt. And the fight, you see the fight just come right out of him. And he could have taken me, but I just had that at the time, and I'll never forget that. But later on, I joined the Army. I was 120 pounds and had weight restrictions. so there I am. I had to make 4 pounds. And so I remember putting the stuff in my pockets and drinking as much water as I could get in that door. And the guy, okay, he got me in there. And I took, I was a Morse code operator time, and I took some judo. And I knocked around, and then later on, I started learning more about nutrition, and I started studying more, and I got stronger, and I drank less beer, worked out more. I did the meditation. I practiced some my karate, in the morning, and I found I could focus better. And eventually I went from a desk job to a field soldier, and I became a paratrooper. And that, back then, it was kind of like nowadays you got special forces stuff, but that was a cool. Oh yeah,
these guys.
It was a big deal. It was awesome. We went through jump school, and you go either PT in the morning, and I made sure to eat much, because if you run to the training center, 5 push chin-ups when you go in the door, you throw on your harness. Everywhere you go, you yell airborne. If you make a mistake, they had this thing called the dying crab. It's on your fingertips and your toes, and you hold it there while they give you words of encouragement. Stuff like, my grandmother has more life in her body, and she's dead for 10 years. And the other thing, if you made a mistake, you dry land swim. So you're in a push-up position, dragging your body around. And then you had to go for lunch, out the door, 5 more chin-ups. Run to lunch. You can barely keep anything down. Keep some soup, maybe. Run back, more chin-ups, more. And at the end of the day, he says, all right, now you come for PT. And what the heck? And this dude comes out, he's got shoulders out to here. All right, now we're running. My God, he runs us even more. I get back. Well, I scarf down some kind of supper. I come in, wash my clothes, and I pass out by 6 o'clock every night. But
I believe it.
That gave me the confidence. I got out of there. You make your first jump. You slam it and jump out the door, and whatever, you hit the ground, you're like, yeah. And I got back, and then I was thinking I joined up for this 24-hour relay run. I just showed up, and I just, okay, this is, who are you? Well, I'm not. Where's your team? Don't have one. Okay, try these guys. Okay. But it was so cool. After that, you just get these. And then out of the Army, I being in your 20s, you're a little cocky. I found I wasn't so good, and I got the worst of a scuffle. And so I got into kickboxing and train. And that was really cool. And here's a story. Like, here I am, like 5 years later, 40 pounds heavier, last minute in the ring. My friend jammed out, so they throw me in there, and I get in there, and of course, who's in the stands but one of the high school bullies screaming, "Kill the skinny wimp." So it's not enough to have 600 people watching you. This, like, okay, I'm going to do this.
Probably the only voice you heard.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? And you get in there, and this guy's left-handed. Oh my flipping gosh! I've been training this way, and he's opposite to me like that. So, and we're into it, and something came to me, and I remember just roundhouse kick to the ribs, and he looks and he just collapses. I thought, okay, did that right. And just stay down. When you gets up, and I thought, if I don't put you down, I'm gonna, so I just hammer once in the ribs. He bends over, kick him in the head, and down he goes, and I won. And it was just such a high. I mean, I felt bad later on, poor bugger, but it was such a high to be. And later on, I got a couple other matches, and later on, a friend of mine referred me to this martial artist who is a gung fu guy. He was a big Ukrainian dude with the guy had forearms like baseball bats, and anyway, a sparring session went a little too heavy, and I was laid up for 3 days. So I learned the traditional humility again, as they teach you. And he taught me a lot, and I remember getting a lot of headaches from the kickboxing, kind of like Dan Millman there. And so I remember taking 5 months off, and all I did was the lowest stances, the breathing, and the forms. And I noticed my posture got better, because a lot of I was like this all the time, and my posture got straighter. I had better balance. And then one night I get this call, and in Kamloops they have, again, a last-minute replacement for kickboxing. I go, yeah, I'm in the ring, I'm training. But, okay, sure. No corner man, nothing. Fortunately, I met Dan Lowney, real cool guy. He knew someone, and he's, Doug, what are you doing here? I'm here for men. He goes, well, he's a salesman. He said, well, I'll corner for you. So go in there. These guys, this town called Kamloops, but these guys were fit. All these guys from other clubs would come in, and they're all lean. And the Kamloops guys got backs up to here, and they were just chopping these guys up like nothing. And so I get in there, and this guy, my opponent, he doesn't box. He just comes at you swinging. He's a slugger. And like, oh my God, I remember clinching and feel my legs give away. And I remember holding on, and they break. And I had to wait for 3 rounds. I timed him. I'd move my head, and he'd come into me, or I'd turn just out of his reach and side kick him. But he had very little technique. He just rushed in, very fit. And I found out later on what they would do is they would train their fighters to go in. As they backed off, they'd beat their shins with a stick. And so I'm dealing with this human robot. But I managed to just time him out. I figured it. I remember actually one of the guys who trained the same gym was Dennis Crawford, who was like a Canadian champion. And he said, step back, uppercut, and hook. He always stepped slightly aside. So I remember that. Anyway, I survived and I won. But that was a lesson. But what I thought was so cool was I was just doing gung fu. Just the posture and the stances. I didn't even hit a bag. That had given me enough. It worked. Go figure. So that I studied praying mantis and eagle claw, and those are pretty cool styles. And I went to train praying mantis with this guy Al Chang, and that's another story, funny story. I go in the gym, I'm looking around, and I'm the only white guy there. All these Asian dudes, harsh, big necks on there. Hey, what do you want? Well, I'm looking for Al Chang. Oh, not here. Okay, so I go stretch in the corner, and this little guy comes up, and he's got this piece of, I'll never forget, he's got this piece of Kleenex up his nose and blood hanging out. He goes, oh, you go do this. And I go, okay, but I'm looking for Al. And I do something, he comes back, oh, you do it. He gives me, I go, I'm looking around, there's all these muscly guys training. I go, well, where's Al Chang? Well, that was Al Chang, the little lean guy, little guy with a bloody toilet paper sticking out his nose. And he was a 1979 lightweight champ, full contact champ. And so I trained with Al. You know, Al was an awesome guy. He goes, oh, you're so, boom, he give you a shot. You go, what's wrong with you? I go, oh, I was wearing a cup. Why are you not wearing a cup? You've always been cupping. Thank you, Al. He says, but one day he says, well, do I want to come to Hong Kong with them? And I said, okay, well, sure. And there was a tournament in Hong Kong. They had these fighters all over the world. And this was, you wore bag gloves, 4-ounce gloves. You know, you work with bag, not the 8-ounce that we use in kickboxing. And you wear a headgear, chest protector, groin protector, and, you know, the gloves. And and it was weird, too, because I found out the hard way that the ground is not like the canvas. You could scoot around, use your footwork. But they had a spongy kind of material, so you had to pick your feet up. And I got in there. This dude was not messing around, man. I could keep him away with my straight left, and and he come over his overhand right, and I remember looking at him, and I couldn't tell the difference between him or the referee, and so I just moved around. Oh, I saw these two gray masses, so I better not hit the wrong one. You know? So I'm like, what the heck? So finally it comes into focus. I come back, and Al say, "Oh, buddy, get in there. You'll hate him. He like kill your mother. You go there." Okay, so I go in there, and I finally, by the third round, I kind of got that confidence. Like, I don't, you think, well, it's going to hurt anyway. You have to commit yourself. That's what I used to tell my lady kickboxers is, you got to commit, girls. You're big on that commitment word, aren't you? So you commit. And yeah, I held my own against this guy. He won. He went on to become the champ. But what a difference. They had women fighters there. These afterwards, they took me. I got a picture taken with Sheik Ken, who Mr. Han from Enter the Dragon, really cool. I saw Carter Wong. I remember there I am walking around, big black eye, limping around, and this dude. I saw this gnarly looking old dude. Something right out of the movies. This guy just looked like 80. He looked like rock hard, and he had these nails like out to here. He's just sitting there smoking underneath the no smoking sign, and he just dragged. It looked like just like if he smiled, it would crack his face, right? And these young guys, and they see him, and they walk around big, around this dude. And he's in the traditional Chinese robes, and I just, Ni Hao Mo, good morning, can I take a picture of you? And he looks at me, shakes his head, yeah, and takes a drag. And I took a shot of this guy, and later on I found out he was like this for real dude, like he apparently killed people with a freaking stick during the, like during the Second World War. I showed it to my friend, he goes, oh yeah, he killed lots of Japanese with the long clothing. Oh, okay, well, he looked for real, man. Like, yeah, that was fun. Yeah, that was just, I got treated like gold when I was there. Just awesome. I got to see Kung Fu Talk, who had apparently gone up against Benny the Jet Rodriguez, and his tiny little gym, and that was it. Hong Kong, It was tiny, and there I am talking to this dude. He was like ranked world number 7. I just couldn't speak English, just kind of nod, and we're talking, kind of gesturing and stuff, but just a real nice guy. And what else did we do? My friend broke his hand on a guy's head. He's this tall, lanky guy, 140 pounds, 6 feet, and he's hitting this guy, this Australian Wing Chun. And I go, stick him, Steve. And he goes, whoo, whoo. And he just gives him this left to come out of nowhere, whack. The guy collapses. And then he goes on to another match, and he hits this guy, and he stops using his left hand. Like, what's wrong with you? And the bone was sticking out of his hand. So I know. So it wasn't. So he finishes the match, and God bless him. And so we go to this one of the gals there, this older gal. She ran a herb shop, and they went in. They set his. Well, the hospital set his bone for him, and then I went to this lady, and she was. I found out later on she was for real. She used to compete forums, and she put on the gloves and duke it out. But real nice. She had her own herb shop there, and they gave me hit certain points, gave me the herbs and fixed me up, and another guy I met was Chan Hung Chan, and he was a great white crane Sifu that I found out later on. I just thought he was cool looking dude. We're standing in line to get weigh in, and someone bumps me. What the hell is that? Oh, that's Hong Kong, Chan Hung Chan. And I got his picture of him. When I got home, people were like, "Oh, I'm not worried. He was the man. Like, this guy was for real." He was, again killed several people.
All right. So you're now obviously you're talking about these some of these people with some reverence, not to say that others you're not, but I don't know too many people who would just offhandedly say, yeah, I'll step in as a substitute for a kickboxing fight. And, you're talking about your first jump out of a plane, like, and there's this string, you're dropping these anecdotes here. And in all of them, I'm just kind of like, what? These sound like very significant events to me. And maybe I'm misunderstanding, but it doesn't sound like there's a lot of periods of time between these. These are all like maybe a 10-year span that all this is going on?
Yeah. It was my jump course was 79. Then I went to Hong Kong in 82, 85, 89. Then I went overseas in 92. Yeah, about 12 years, a lot of stuff happened.
Okay. So the point being, you are clearly cut from a different cloth, or maybe as you're telling these stories, you've got the benefit of hindsight and it doesn't seem like as big of a deal. But all these things you're saying, I'm going, what? These sound like these traumatic events. Were they traumatic in the moment?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. I mean,
because I think we're missing a bit of that.
I apologize if I don't want to sound
no apologies. No apologies needed.
I just was so focused on, and it's interesting because personally, even I did another match, I just still didn't feel good enough. So I was always trying to And I met people like this, and I just, to me, I was never enough, right? And it's funny because later on I see people and they get the yellow belt and they're on top of the world, and I go, okay. And this was a hindrance later on because I never thought it was good enough. So I was always looking for the next, if that makes sense. And I mean, there were days when I spent all weekend feeling like I was throwing up because of the, head trauma or whatever. So yeah, it wasn't all glory. I mean, there was some jumps where they're coming down and all I see is his body's lying there, not moving. I go, oh God, it's going to hurt. Turn it off. And other days you land and you got a bit of a thermal hot air, and you land standing up like, oh, that was easy. And then the wind catches you and drags you through a swamp, whatever. But these are cool stories, Everyone's got bragging rights, right? But you're right. You're absolutely right. There was some very uncomfortable. There's days when you come home from the gym and you got a splitting headache because someone hit you too hard, or and you're tired and you're not this sort. So yeah, there was downtimes definitely, but at the time I just was on this roll. I wanted to.
Sure. You mentioned you kept going because it wasn't enough, or you didn't feel good enough, or whatever. Where did that come from?
Oh, probably growing up.
Okay.
Probably growing up. Yeah, I don't want to say, for me syndrome, but yeah, I always got that. I used to get a lot of that. Who you? And I remember one time the gym teacher saying, "Hey, you could probably you're pretty good running. You could probably get into the track team." And I remember hockey. I said, "Wow, who are you?" And it was just constant. So I was always trying to excel wherever I could. And I noticed there was sort of it's almost like a homeostasis, an equilibrium that the world wants to keep you in a certain spot. And maybe it's your own mind, because like I could walk on a base tomorrow or walk on a construction site and I'd be at home. I don't want to do it, but I just know it. It's very familiar. Maybe it's like a friend of mine has been the corrections officers. They say to see the same convicts coming back because they feel safe where they are. They feel it's familiar. It's not good, but it's familiar. So I making me think now. But there is something. You're absolutely right. I met one of the guys I trained with, Jamie Hunter, really cool guy. He was like dancing with his girlfriend. He used to talk about his, but he did a 1 or 2 matches. That was it for him. He was confident and he left. And I thought, to me, it wasn't good enough. I had to be better. Yeah. But yeah, I admire the guys that showed up and they trained and they got good and they accomplished what they wanted to. And I think, yeah.
It's interesting that you talk about it in that way, because this is the exact reason I didn't step into kickboxing. A few years ago, as I had the opportunity to meet some of the people that I've met through this show and started, some kickboxing training, realized, okay, I have some skill. I'm not, I'm 42 now, I'm not completely out of my depth. I can usually hang with younger guys. But what's the end game here? I was going to step in and either I was going to lose and have to do it again, or I was going to win and have to do it again until I lost, but I wouldn't be okay, right? So I went through that mental exercise a number of times, so I completely get it. And I think, you mentioned you were 120 pounds. I was 130 pounds through high school. I'm 5'7" when I first wake up. So there's probably a dynamic there as well that we share, and wanting the world to validate us and say, you know what? Yeah, we treated you poorly then, but now you are good enough.
It's funny. It doesn't seem to. I've heard about that too. I've heard people very successful, and they still have that mindset that not good enough. Yeah. Maybe that's what pushes us, but I've also seen the other extremes. And if I can go into kind of psychological shift, every tough guy, like hard, I'm talking serious guys, like 4 black belts, got in a fight, broken jaw, puts 3 guys in the hospital, kind of like for real, but they get these meltdowns And unfortunately, I've been around when some of them are melted down. We've been drinking beer and whatnot. You hear these stories. Oh my gosh, I can't. Of being, it breaks my heart when I hear stories. Being beaten as a kid, and their fathers committing suicide, and or being molested, and all these things. I'm like, oh my God, it's too much for my head. But same token, you have to. One martial arts. Sometimes you have to absorb the hurt. He says. Sometimes he says, and I smacked him one time. I forget what it was, and I said, Jesus, he goes, it's okay. Here, I'll show you. Put some T-Dot down. He says, I got to get you rubbed it on. It's just, it's just, you got to learn to heal. Sometimes he says, if you're an instructor, you have to take the hurt. Oh, crap, now what? What the heck? But it's right. And I have been in situations where sometimes someone's being aggressive with me, and I think I can take you right, and they go, okay, we'll talk about this. And I think that's where traditional martial arts defeats the ego, and you don't have to be proving yourself all the time. And that's what I admire about the traditional, even though they sometimes it's lacking what we think the fighting side, because let's face it, the kickboxing, that it's more. And you're absolutely right. When I was 40, I was working in a studio, a Chinna studio, and a couple things. I was teaching a women's cardio kickboxing, and some guy made a smart comment. He says, "What's next, Doug? Nude boxing?" And okay, wise guy. And then the owner said, "Look, we need a fundraiser. We need you. Would you go in the ring as exhibition?" And I thought, "Yeah, okay, I'll go." Knocked around. Well, next thing we know, it's a title match, and I'm 40. And I go, "Okay, all right." And I'm going to university at the time. I had hardly any time, and I was teaching also traditional martial arts, right? Sure. And so, damn it, and I'm working late too. So I remember doing all my classes with hand weights. So my shoulders, so I keep my hands up. And I remember the last week before, I said, that's it. This young guy, he's 22, got 6-0. He's got better fight record than me. Muay Thai style, I never did leg kicks. And so the last week I said, okay, I'm going to sleep more. So I deliberately went to bed earlier because I knew he would probably be hyper and want to do more. So, and I got in there, and in my mind, I was thinking, how am I going to do this? 5 rounds. I've only done 3 in my life. So I took it to him right away. So I did, because I knew they were going to square off. I watched the other match. They square off and kick the legs. I said, okay, I'll take it right to you, Doc. So I'm like this, feeding it to him. He's feeding it back, but I could take it to the forehead, take it, and he had to stand up to kick. So it hurt, but not as much. So I don't know what I thought then. I said, okay, I'm going to come at him in close like a boxer. And then the second round, I changed sides. So I managed 2. Now the third round, I'm getting gassed. I'm getting gassed. So I started counter punching. I waited, counter. And I just kept pulling stuff out of my bag of tricks. One thing I noticed, a lot of them, they couldn't kick off the front leg. So that was kind of my keep away. I could throw it, off my front leg, but I just kept getting points. The 4th round, I forget what's going on there. I'm in the corner. He dropped my mouse guard is clear. Drops in the ice water. I can't find my stupid thing. So give me the down. I get back, and it's 4th round, 5th round. I'm there. I go, well, that's it. And one of the corner goes, no, you got to go back. And I go, F you. I'm done. He goes, no, you got to go back. And I go, holy crap. And we're sitting there, and the towel comes across the ring. So his corner threw in the towel. Okay, I can do this. I take a few deep breaths, go up there, very nonchalant, take a deep breath. And my opponents are tough like a steam inside. I can do it again, back to traditional march. Calm it, nice, give him a hug, arm up, whatever, get off of there, and then limp off the other room where they worked me over the massage table.
But now you have the title.
Oh yeah, but exactly. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And what you said, you nailed on the head. You can't stop.
Right.
And right away, Bill, my buddy there, goes, "Oh yeah, he wants a rematch. Oh yeah, F him, blah blah blah." And then the little son of a gun won, and I'm thinking, I'm gonna do this guy, but I'm thinking, no, That's it. I said, and they're poking, and I ran into this guy at school. And I says, no, you're going to the medicine school. He goes, oh yeah, kind of cocky or whatever. Well, you might want your brains for something better. And then about 6 months later, one time I was in the library, just came down, sat down. It was very simple. And I said, how's it going? Pretty good. And he seemed almost apologetic, but for a while there, as soon as that was over, rematch, blah blah blah, rematch. And
ego.
Exactly, and you're absolutely right. And my intention was to learn self-defense. And what I was becoming was being entertainment. And I got more matches. Well, you know what? I did some hard matches, and some guy comes in. It's like a street fighter. And I remember this. I was in a bar. I watch out for Martin. He's a street fighter. Okay, forget Martin. I'll watch for you. But yeah, Martin would pick on drunks. He'd pick on drunks, get them out the parking lot, beat them up. And then, Martin's had 100 fights. Okay, but yeah, well, I could go down the schoolyard. Big deal, So you have to, again, I often think about that. Even my chiropractor was telling me. He was saying, oh, yeah, we could get, Diego will train you. And this guy, Diego Beltrami, by the way, another he was like number 5 in full contact Kyokushinkai. Fascinating character. He had this kick that came out of nowhere. I sparred with him once, and I'm not kidding. And you're like this, and there's a foot right there. Like, okay, maybe it's the light, something wrong with the light. So move around. Boom. Okay, all right. I'm gonna do something fancy, like footwork. Boom, it's there. It's like, okay. Thank you. Thank you for not knocking me out. I appreciate it. But yeah, even though, like I said, even the chiropractor was all wanting me to go back in the ring, and I was telling myself, look, the Sifu told me, cut it out. Your eyes don't look right. You're taking too many hits. And so that was hard. It was fun and it was good too, because the kids, I was teaching kids. I did it for free and that, but they were like, oh yes, Mr. Setter, and the parents would come up to you, and that's cool, but it's not the point. It's not what we're here to do. We're not here to. So, but I got to admit, you can't take that away. That was
no. And so what's interesting is, as a percentage, very few of us are going to apply our training in the way that you did. Right. And what I find is that the majority of people who compete in those kind of full contact circles, whatever the discipline, whatever the rule set is, they tend to become really focused on that is the be all end all. That is what differentiates training, etc. But it sounds like, despite that, you have some different attitudes towards it. Like, that's what I'm picking up.
Definitely. I prior to that, that was 98. So 96, I lost a lot of money in real estate. Got kicked out by my girlfriend. Blah blah blah. And I remember being in this half renovated house I was working on, and the heat was cut off, and I just got to a pivot point. And I remember going down the basement and doing my forms over and over and over and over. I go running, then I go work, and every night I come back and I just do it until I'm sweat exhausted. I pass out, and then I just do it. And after a while, that's when I started teaching aerobics. And I felt really embarrassed. I'm the only guy in my class, and I only done anyway. I pulled it off, and I said, "Well, I'm going to do that." I put together a cardio kickboxing. And I went to, I remember Parks and Rec, and all these people were assessing me, and I just remember putting my head down. Okay, follow me, and I just did my workout, and I looked, and they loved it, and so I did that, and I found, yeah, I could do this. I could, and later on started teaching, but I don't know, like people say, well, you can't be any good, you don't have a black belt. Well, I had a black sash, and I knocked people out. I did something right, but again, it was that, I don't know, again, not good enough kind of attitude. And So I went to school because I always never thought myself a very good student. So I went to university and I got a science degree. I hated the whole lot, most of it. But again, it taught me I could do it. It taught me I could sit down and study. And that's why I tell a lot of people, they don't understand. They they think it's all or nothing. They think you're a complete couch potato or you're an Olympic athlete. They don't understand that those daily things you do, that walk to the corner, that 5 push-ups, that, doing the form, doing your form. Forms are awesome. Forms give you flexibility, they give you strength, they give you stability. And as I think Andy Allen was saying, he couldn't believe it when he went into jiu-jitsu. There's this karate form. There's a karate form it's actually a hold. And the same thing when I do kung fu, I started taking jiu-jitsu and oh my God, I've been doing this for years. I've been doing this. It's for here. This is actually it's actually a hold. Like, what the heck? And so that's what I find nice about it. It's not all fighting per se. It's health. It's building your body. And then there's also kind of an expressive part to it too. I think Bruce Lee talks about that. Show you, why not? But that was a really good time. I thought the worst, like losing money, and that forced me to go into what I liked doing. And I remember going to these different gyms, and I'd say, "Look, here, I got the system. I like to teach it. Oh, we don't know who you are." I talked to one guy. He turned out to be he was ex-vice cop, a lifelong friend now. And he said, "I don't know who you are." And so he phoned my chiropractor, and the chiropractor gave me the word. And the guy kind of gave me free rein. And I started bringing people into his gym. And then he started, okay, well, sure. And we started splitting, and we put on all these seminars and that. So it was a really good time. But that was, it was cool because there's so much going on. Again, like you said, it's not just being the fight, the next fight. And actually, some of the top guys I knew, one guy was Ernie Jackson. He does stuff for the movies now. So does Tony Morelli. He was like a light heavyweight champ. But they lost. They went outside. They're kind of like outside their focus. And why not?
You can only get punched in the head so many times.
It's not worth it.
It's not a sustainable career.
No, and
what's the average lifespan of a competitive Muay Thai athlete? It's like 2 years or something.
Oh yeah. They end in their 20s.
Yeah.
You don't see any older ones. You don't see many older boxers. You don't see many older aerobics instructors. I've seen a few in their 40s, and they're all they have their veins sticking out. I mean, they don't look that healthy because you can overdo it. And I concur. I admire guys like what's his name, Joe Foreman. Yeah,
George Foreman. The boxer?
George Foreman. Sorry, yeah, I was thinking Joe Frazier. Yeah, George Foreman.
I wasn't sure if you were going there or if you were going Taibo.
Oh yeah, that was
Billy.
No, that was the other dude.
Billy Blanks.
Yeah, Billy Blanks. Yeah, the greatest martial art. How did that stand up? How do you stand up calling yourself the greatest martial artist?
I did he make that claim? I'm not familiar if he did.
I think he was in movies. Don't get me wrong. The guy was good.
He was, and I've known people who saw him in competition.
Oh, really?
Who witnessed him in competition, and apparently he was next level.
Really?
Just some really impressive stuff. Yeah, yeah. Taibo's still around. Yeah, I don't know who's doing it, but it's still around.
Good for him.
We've tried to get him on the show because he's a piece of our history, about our culture. Yeah. So we want to have him on the show, but hasn't happened. Maybe someday.
Yeah. Well, it's cool. I saw one of his movies, and it was cool that he was he was told to get a mouthful of water and run with it, and then he had to come back with a mouthful of water. Now that was so cool.
What movie was that? Oh, I remember that one. Shoot. Let's go back.
Yeah. But a little bit, and you know what? I used to do that because I used to wear a mouth guard when you train. And I read about the Apache children used to do that. And they were expected to run for miles, come back, spit out the water. So I worked up to about a mile and a half. and you have to really calm your breathing. You get a mouthful of water, and you got to just run easy, and you got to as you go.
So it's really interesting. I have this theory that a lot of these older, seemingly ridiculous traditions are rooted in something, right? They didn't stick around for no reason. And
Right.
one of the things that we're seeing now, and it's only been around for a few years at least, as I've seen it, but this notion of training, breathing solely through your nose, so you maintain a parasympathetic state. So
Yes.
your body stays in a more relaxed state. So you're not devoting energy to adrenaline and constantly jacked up all the time, but saving the mouth breathing and the intensity for competition, because you can recover so much better. And I've experimented with this. We actually have a cardio training program, and it's rooted in this principle, because just the little bit that I implemented it in my own training, like, it was game changing in weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
So whether or not that's why they did it, that's what I think of when I hear a story like that.
No, it's fascinating. And what I like about martial arts, traditional martial arts, you go into, sometimes it gets out there. But I remember some of the kung fu, they talk about the delayed death touch and the mak and the na mak and the what the heck? I remember this Chinese gal I was seeing, and I talked about, you're not laying that Chai Pai on the arm. And she starts laughing. Chai Pai is dark arts, and she started laughing. But you talk to, again, when my guy taught me Eagle Claw, he was talking that the chakras and the energy centers, and when you're at very basic, your earth, and earth is just basically your very hard blocks, and some call I talked to another guy and he mixed it up. He called, well, that's the bore. He mixed the elements with something else, and then the next level is the fire, and the fire is, like you said, very aggressive. Musashi, Miyamoto Musashi, Book of Five Rings, talks to this. And it is very aggressive. It's just boom, 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 or it's just very responsive. And the next one's the water, and the water is very fluid. It yields and goes back, and then air it's out there, man. It's kind of like Aikido. And then the next stage is the ether, or they call it something else. And that's, like you said, that's when you get that stage where you kind of, you react, but you're not even with your program anymore. You just draw on whatever comes up. And so, because initially, let me explain this another way. We're going stage one. I had punched that, and I learned to block it, right? You finally, instead of going like your hands are up trying to protect your head, you shift your body, palm by your hair, or you just shift or your hand, and you just, after a while, you still react, but instead of flinching, your body turns, or your body takes it, or you do something. So that's the first stage. And the more advanced stage is I can actually, and this is what Beltrami, that Diego Beltrami, I noticed I could punch, if I'd be an eighth of an inch away, and he wouldn't flinch. He just knew exactly when it was coming. And that's when you don't flinch, but that's the higher art. So when you're in this position where you're no longer, here comes defense number one, a block punch. Okay, now it comes spontaneously, boom. And now it's like, no, it's not here yet. It's not here. It's, it's not here. So, like, it's not. And that's I think that's what they talk about. I mean, you draw on, I don't know with you, but sometimes I'm sparring, and I guess something just comes out of nowhere. I thought, I never practiced that. Where did that come from? Like, what was that about?
There are these moments, right? And
exactly.
That's in Japanese, it's satori, right? Like this idea that you're just, the conscious mind just kind of falls away, and your training just happens. And I've been training since I was 4, and I've had like half a dozen of them in my life, and they're just, my reaction is kind of like what I think you're describing, just like, where'd that come from? Like, surprised at my own, I don't know if I want to call it skill in that moment. Maybe it is, but just, I can do that. That's really cool.
Well, exactly. And I remember, Well, that was the confrontation, and things were going. Let's just say the conversation was going nowhere. so I tagged this guy, I went down, and I said, "Stop! Enough!" And I remember just going. I didn't even want. I just went. He came at me. I just went straight right, and the right moment, and he collapsed. Mm. And I was so amazed. I was standing over, looking at him, like, "Oh my God, that worked!" Like, not, just his head didn't snap or nothing. He just went. And I was, oh, that's so weird. Like, holy God, what the heck? That? And of course, Buddy jumps in there and clocks me and game on. But it was like, oh my gosh, that worked. It was like this, what do they call it? Realization or cognition or whatever. So, wow, what was that? I wish I could stop and, sorry about that, by the way, but it was like, whoa, my God, you're trying to make it out like, where'd that come from? And like I said, it's fascinating. And I see it in sports. You talk to people later on, yeah. And that's really cool. That's when I was with the Army, I went over to the former Yugoslavia, and we were doing peacekeeping. And I remember patrolling. We had two warring factions. You had to keep them apart. Mm-hmm. I remember patrolling one night, and I'm just walking down this road, because there's landmines everywhere. You stay on the pavement, hard pack, you're saying, and the fireflies are going, crickets are going, and then suddenly the back of my neck, you get the hairs coming up, crickets stopped, fireflies stopped. I stopped one, and I looked back at it, and he was like, yeah, and we both, it was weird. Now people say, oh yeah, you jammed out, but no. Something was telling me not today. So I just backed off gracefully, and we left. And
when I teach self-defense, that's the first thing that I talk about. When you have real conversations with people who have been in impromptu violence, quite often there was an instinct that they violated.
I knew something was wrong,
and I think we have it for a reason. It's got to be there, whether your view of humanity is evolution or creationism or intelligent design. I don't think it matters, because we have it, right? There's more than enough documented evidence. Like, it's there. We've got it for a reason, and our modern society encourages us to ignore it, and it's really a shame, because I know it has saved me on a number of occasions.
Yes, and that's the beauty. If you've ever saw the movie The Seven Samurai.
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah. But there's one scene there where he's testing these Ronin, these mercenaries, to go in the room. And one guy walks the room, and of course he doesn't get killed, but he gets attacked. Mm-hmm. Next guy goes in, and he counters the attack. And the third guy, this one harsh-looking guy, just looks in, shakes his head, not going in there. And he had the high. To me, he trusts himself. He had the higher instinct. And you're absolutely right. I actually wrote a book called One Less Victim. Because because I was thinking about there's serial criminals, but there's also serial victims, and because I knew in the Army you'd watch the same guys always got beat up. Well,
but it is absolutely not politically correct to say that.
Sorry,
right? And I'm with you. The habits occur all over the place. Sometimes people, we don't have to unpack the psychology of it, but please continue.
Sure. I talked, I'll be blunt, he's edited out, but I phoned up, I was researching this, like, this is really weird, because I know same people follow these patterns the same, and you're sending out signals, because you could have some guy train him in Taekwondo, he might not know anything, but his body posture is different. Mm-hmm. And same thing, I remember one time I was in a cafe, and these guys at the table were giving us hard time. So one guy I was talking to, he gets up, goes to the cashier. This is back when he gets a roll of pennies. He walks by, smiles at the table, and he's holding on this, and they all kind of, you could see the cop just suddenly, and it was that posture. It wasn't like a threat. Well, it wasn't a threat, but just so. Sorry, I digress. But anyway, I started studying this, and because I wrote a crime column for a while. I used to write this thing for a monthly newspaper, and I noticed it was constantly saying I knew something was wrong, and And I phoned up this prison psychologist one time. And he right away, yeah, I agree. I go, really? You got any cases? He goes, yeah. He says, I know a woman who was raped 5 times hitchhiking, which keeps hitchhiking. And I said, oh my God, and I once talked to victim services. I says, do you see these patterns? And she says, no, we can't talk. That's not right. And then 2 days later, she phoned me back. She says, you know what? You got something there. It's true. And she said, when they have these crime reports, it seems there's random things, like crazy things that happen. Like these guys had broken the homes, and they would steal all the jewelry, then go in the kids' room, pull the heads off all the stuffed toys, and just some weird stuff. But that was what. But also, there's people consistently are crime victims, and I found that interesting. And my whole thing when I teach martial arts, like you said, I try to break that. And as far as I'm concerned, a lot of that is the traditional confidence, look after yourself, but treat yourself right. The other thing is it might be a small thing, but I don't know if you ever read Mark McYoung. He's a self-defense expert, and his things, don't be an a-hole. And I go, good point, because I've gone into another story for you. I had this guy come in one time teaching a teens class. He goes, what's his name? Ferrari, yeah. He goes, I'm going to show you something. I go, okay, tell you what, Joe, I'm almost finished the class. You got the last 5 minutes. And I just said, I want to, hang on, Joe. Teacher, right? Just great class, good class, thank you. Listen, we have Mr. I won't use his name.
Sure.
Here, he's going to show us some Muay Thai boxing. Invited him into our club. He goes, whoa, boo, 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 and he does something that's like, okay, that's pretty lame. Okay, thank you, Mr. Whatever. And he was just rude, crash, and a year or so later, he offended I don't want to say it, well, I will, whatever, Hell's Angels. Another kickboxer laid up beating on him. And it was funny, years later, I was reading a book about Hell's Angels in Canada, and they talk about that incident. They actually talk about beating him up. Right. Hey, I know him. It's awesome. But if I come into a different club, say it's the White Crane Club, whatever, and I pay respect to how you're doing, and show it, you know what? Sometimes they just open up to you. It's awesome. You come in like you know everything. Either you're going to get a beating or they just ignore you. And I found that with my Eagle Class. I went to a restaurant one time, and they're kind of ignoring me. It was a Chinese restaurant ignoring me. So I left, and I came back, and he says, yeah, come on in. And I go, no, they don't like called the Guilo Fun, the white porn devil. I said, I don't think they like the Guilo. Come on in. He sits down. They come running over to him. And he puts down the menu, and he goes, and he does this wave of the hand, goes, no, bring me the other menu. And they go, look. So they bring him a special menu. And he goes, my friend here, he needs fucked up. I need this, I need that. And boom, boom, boom. Everything done for this guy. And it was hilarious. But I found out later on he helped them. He had sorted some people out because of trouble, whatever. But it was just, but again, that respect, that courtesy. And that saved me too. One time, I remember a Taekwondo guy invited me to, it was very nice of Tony and Luke. He had a breaking seminar for his black belts. And it was really cool. I did learn some good techniques. But I remember coming down, boom, on these boards, and the pain going up through my arm. And I go, take a breath. And I gave a polite bow to him, and that gave me enough to maintain my composure. So I thought, I get it now. And he told me a story of a guy who broke a bunch of boards with his head, and then he bowed, he walked off stage and passed out. so just all these things tied in. There was all these stuff. I mean, I've seen, I've trained with guys who are criminals, done stuff, borderline stuff, but you know what? You give them the time of day, you treat them right, you straight up, you respect their club, and doggone it, they treat you like gold. And I that's one of the best things. I went to live in a place called Winnipeg, and I was renovating houses, doing a lot of work. I hated it. I just hated the whole place. But I got a hold of a chiropractor. Oh, he's a kung fu instructor. And then I started meeting the martial art community, and they're so cool. They're just so cool to mix with, and you learn so much. And one time I went to a martial arts store, and I'm asking this guy, well, who does this? Who does that? He goes, you know what? You should go see Doug Setter and learn off of him. I go, well, I'm Doug Setter. He goes, oh, I heard he said you. Oh, okay, well, thank you. It's like
that's great. You're talking about these. Let's call them people with different experiences, different walks of life. People who have, because we don't all grow up in a kind world. Some of us grow up in a very harsh world.
Yes, yeah.
And what I'm hearing in the way you're talking about folks, there's seems to be no judgment as you're talking about some of these other people, which is really interesting to me. So the because you were, I'm assuming the way you're describing it is the way it was. If you were engaging with these folks without judgment, I assume you were able to have an element of your education onto the world and into the martial arts that most of us are not going to have. Let's be honest. I'm not going to intentionally engage with people that I know are criminals. And just where I've been raised, the people I've been around, I'm less likely to be around folks who have that life experience.
Right.
What, if you thread through those folks, what did you learn from them that maybe someone like I didn't have the opportunity to learn because I didn't engage with them?
That's a good point, And I found this with soldiers as well, some. And you're absolutely right. I think I found out, you see them doing acts of kindness, and you see them doing things that you go, okay, and then someone tells you, oh, by the way, he does that. You go, okay, well, yeah, I wouldn't do that either, but, like nothing really vile, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But I think, okay, he's hard on the edges, but son of a gun, he does this time of day. I remember going to a place, actually, and I found out later on he was doing some stuff on the side. But at the end of the workout, we all line up. We salute to the Korean flag, and I remember him giving me a bow because he respected me as well. And I thought, oh, crap, he could beat my head in without, but he was just very polite, and not phony. Like, it was like, yeah, we're training brothers in a way. Right. I think it's almost, I respect their ability. I respect their discipline, their ability, and I've seen them do respectful things, kind things, just the way they treat, some of these really awkward kids. Little kids got a hearing problem, or we think something might be going on that not cool, but just the way they treat them sometimes. Like, holy crap, you don't have to, but they still do. And so that's where I kind of make leniency or hold a judgment. I mean, trust me, they're hard drinkers. They're doing, some of them doing dope. Like I said, and nasty guys. But I've never seen like cruelty. Like, I remember this one guy, unarmed combat dude. And Jesus, what happened? Well, this happened, and he put some guys down. But it was never. This didn't seem vindictive or mean. It was just a crazy fight. It was consensual too. That's the other thing too. That, like, I remember one time I think I was walking with a date. Some guys in the car were cursing me, and then a guy pulls up and goes, "Oh, you're with a girl." And it was like, okay, you don't pick. And I thought, that's interesting. You don't pick fights with guys with dates. Like, I thought that he still had an honor system. Maybe that's a bad example, but that's what I say.
No, but it's an interesting illustration of as you're talking, the word that's coming to mind is code. In martial arts, we're used to a code.
Yes.
We talk about Budo.
Yes.
We talk about these principles, and
exactly.
I think it's easy to forget that we don't all have the same code.
Oh, no.
But in my opinion, the definition of integrity is holding up that code.
Yes.
And so, the example that you just gave, not my code. I'm not going to pull up next to somebody and curse them out, but the integrity of not violating their code when they realize, oh, there's a woman present, we're not going to do that, and driving away. That's never going to be my experience. I'm never going to be that person in the car, but I can still respect the forceful implementation of a different worldview.
Yeah. Well, and it's what I admire too is, as I talk to a former police officer, he said, well, the fight's consensual. And when I was in the barracks, the argument, okay, who's ever right or wrong, and it gets into a scuffle, then that's it. Okay, we're done. Like, okay, gotcha. And nothing was said. I remember one time I come in, I had a few beer, and this guy, Danny, a friend of mine, and he's bugging the crap out of this big, angry guy who's often drunk. But of course, Danny won't shut up, and he just keeps bugging him. And finally, this guy, I'm standing next to Danny going, oh, here it comes. And the door swings open, and there's this stocky dude. I didn't know him very well. He's just stocky. He's looking. He goes, and he says something. He said, yeah, let's go. And he goes up to this big guy, and they start trading punches. It's going back and forth. And he grabs the guy, and he starts kicking him a few times. And the big guy stands, I've had enough. And he looks at all of us with disgust, walks back to him, slams the door. Like, we must have been disturbing his TV show or something. It was just, but there was no swearing. It was just like, the whole lot of you shut up. But it was like, oh, that's it. Okay, I get it. And then we all and I worked with the guy for months, and we talked sometimes, and he said, oh yeah, I used to box back home. But nothing, nothing this arrogance I hear nowadays. It was over and done with. And you're absolutely right. It was no, you don't.
What's the, I'm not going to be able to attribute this line, but I heard it recently. It's somewhere in the, and maybe it's just being repeated, but I've heard it in the current crop of, let's say, violence and self-defense.
Sure.
And it is the people who obsess over violence are people who've never experienced real violence.
Probably. Maybe you're right. It's funny you should say that, because I remember when I was going overseas, I know it's just peacekeeping, but we're all pumped up.
Sure.
And I remember the guy saying, yeah, I do this is a firefight. And then getting there, I'm thinking, these poor people got nothing. They've lost their homes. They're ticked off. And some guy from headquarters, we never had to go on patrol or do nothing. He goes, I'd sure like to get in a firefight. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, right. I've been in the aftermath of fire, put that way. It's this, whatever, a bit messy, but and you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. The guys that's, oh yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would have bragging rights if I was there, killing the Taliban and whatever. But again, it's right place, right time. I've got more guns. This thing was self-defense. It's not consensual. You're not squaring off. I made that mistake once. I won't do that again. Guy pulled a hammer on me, and I know, yeah, but it came out of nowhere. And again, I knew something was wrong, but you think, oh, this, that, and I walked away. I backed away. But in the army, infantry, we do ambushes and we do raids. So you take every advantage you have, and this is what the criminal does. They do not square off for a fair fight.
Excuse me, sir. You have 30 seconds to prepare. I would like to engage in an altercation for your wallet.
Yeah, you don't mind. You don't mind.
Is it okay with you? Do you have a minute? Can we fight?
Yeah, no. They'll go very quickly, aggressively, and or bigger numbers, disadvantage. So people. Now that's a very interesting part too. When people do get assaulted, I interviewed some victims, and there's a trauma, and it's horrible, because I know when I had the hammer pulled on me. Well, one, I grabbed my date, and I walked across the room. I took her across the street, and that's all I could think of, because everything was throwing me off. I'm thinking, hit here, block here, what? Should just jumped on whatever, but you can't. So we go across the street, and after that, I felt I look bad in front of her. There's all these other things going on. It's not just, oh, well, I saved my life, whatever. It's just, no, now I look less than a man in front of, and don't even think it doesn't happen on a certain level. I've never seen a friend of mine get roughed up in front of his girlfriend. I went, you're kind of done, dude. because in her eyes, you're not what you should be.
Sad but true in some examples.
You know
absolutely.
what? It's politically incorrect. I don't get it, because on a survival level, and even with our peers, we go, you know what? I got a friend who's a lawyer. He used to buy his part. I mean, I would feel confident if he'd back me up in any kind of physical situation. Where some very nice people I know, I wouldn't think of even taking them with me. They're good friends, but we're talking survival, right? Now, when something happens to a family, it's horrible, because they're not just, oh yeah, our car was broken. Oh yeah, I was smugged. No, now you were degraded. You're lost. Blah blah. There's all these things, and that's why self-defense is so important. It's not just about not getting a bleeding nose or a lost wallet. It's these things that I mean, all these things that go on. The trauma, the degradation, the damage, et cetera. So I don't know if I answered that, but I that's what I thought was the worst. I know as a kid getting beat up, it was not so much as, and yeah, I'd rather get a bleeding nose than get degraded or embarrassed.
Sure.
Like that.
I spend a lot of time, it sounds like you have, to try and unpack the realities of these scenarios. And there are things that are in conflict. And one of the conflicts is our primal instincts and social convention. They're not always aligned.
No, not even close.
And I think it's really interesting that people will that don't fully understand that conflict exists become so dismissive. Right? We are hardwired. There are things that we are hardwired to do. And I'm not even going to go into examples, because it doesn't matter, because I think we can all think of some of them. That hardwiring, you can work with it, you can work against it, but you're always better off acknowledging it, that it is there. There are things that you, everybody listening, is hardwired into. And especially around violence, the more we understand how that works, how that operates, how, the selection of victims, the psychology of the person who becomes a repeat violent perpetrator of violence, right? The more we know, the better we can implement that.
I concur totally. Right? That's brilliant. I'm glad I came here today. This is awesome.
Me too.
I could ramble hours in this. Well, it's. Yeah, I remember one of my self-defense, it was women's fitness class. We're talking about kickboxing. They go, well, what about self-defense? I go, tell you what, who do you know is a repeat victim? Or who would be, if you were to be a predator? And right away, the lady wasn't there, and they said, yeah, so-and-so. I go, yeah. She had one lady, she had a leg injury, so she's very awkward. Mm-hmm. And it'd be like, and you think of a herd, and you see the lion sees the one awkward-looking antelope. Well, there you go. And if you take it a step further, I said, well, next time you're in the mall, and I've done this with people, we sit there in the mall, sit in the food court, and I said, look around. Who would you think if you're a mugger, and don't say anything, just write it, and consistently, right. And
there have been studies done on this.
Yes.
With criminals, incarcerated criminals, and they will show people lists of individuals. Who would you assault? Who would you fill in the blank? Yeah. And there were seemingly, if I remember the study, the last bit that I pulled on this, seemingly regardless of what they were incarcerated for.
Oh, really?
They're picking the same people.
Interesting.
Which that part blew my mind.
That does too, to me.
But
that's wild.
If there's a flag, a radar, an energetic presentation of victimhood, that would make sense. Something to pick up on.
Well, exactly. There's one, too, I remember, really cool author, Andrew Bax. He's a child abuse lawyer. He writes about real cases. And he says there's something about an animal that looks bonded. Like if you had a lion cub, and he said there's something about certain animals that the other predators know there's consequences. Mm-hmm. They can just pick up on that. Where if it's an orphan lion cub, the predators right away, they have the sense that it's okay. It's free game. And I find the same with some people, and you're absolutely right. The process for a ripoff an assault and even a scam is very similar. It's very similar. And the one part that I found that's really true to me is what they call an interview. And I've had it, someone pops up, hey man, and I remember a guy asking for a cigarette, and I go, yeah, well, no, I look at him in the eyes, and I get this chill later on, right? And I remember another time we were on this bridge, he's by me, I said, he looked okay, hands stuffed in his hands, he looked like maybe a working guy. And I thought, he goes, hey, you got a light? And I go, yeah, and I get right close to him, lit it for you, how are you doing, man? Fine. And then it's kind of weird, but otherwise, before that guy pulled a hammer, right away, I was getting that signal. So there's... Go ahead. I'm just going to say, if you can win the interview, you don't have to get the fight. So when a car full of guys comes by, hey, F and whatever, cat call them, and say you're having a bad day, you say something, then they jump out. Or I've had a little guy come up to me, and I stepped around, like, I don't know if I did a bakwa step. I didn't even think I just stepped around him. And he starts cursing at me, and then I see in the corner, I don't know, I saw these curtains open or something. Okay, his friends are waiting for him, this. But you're absolutely right. If you can beat that, whether it's aggression or whether it's trying to intimidate you, then they're kind of like, the strange dog sniffing you. Mm-hmm. Then you're probably not going to get in a fight.
One of my favorite de-escalation tactics is appearing unbalanced. Nobody's going to go around bragging they beat up a crazy person.
You got that right. Yeah.
So you start talking about pick your favorite, like, off the deep end conspiracy or whatever, and just get really into it. Or, there's all kinds of ways you can take that. With the sense stuff, and we'll start to wrap up here after this. One of the things that I think really holds us back as martial artists and self-defense in the West is our cultural reliance on science.
Yes.
We know there's a sixth sense. There's some stuff going on about that.
There is.
But it's not accepted by everyone. If I was to Google right now, what are the senses, it would list that there are 5 and it would name them off, and we all know what they are. But to open up a little bit of space and say, you know what, this is a thing. So many of us, I would argue all of us have experienced it, whether or not we admit it or not.
Yeah.
And if we can implement that in curriculum, as it sounds like you have, as I know a number of martial arts schools have, I think that is the best first line of defense. Would you agree?
Totally. It's amazing. Like I said, the Army, throwing you pick it out. Being crazy, by the way, my friend that knocked that guy out in Hong Kong, he was saying, the other day he's walking down the street, there's 2 guys, looked like they wanted trouble, and so he started talking to himself. And he said, so they went on the other side of the street. They went away. So you're absolutely right. But I think that is the highest thing. And I think that, you can call it whatever you want, God energy or universe energy or whatever. But I think there's something to that. No, there is something to that. I won't even say I think. I know it is. It's what you can pick up quickly. You can pick up whether you assess the situation. And if you go in with a good heart, like no bad intention, I believe your mind will work with you.
Yeah.
They'll work with you, and it'll pick things out. And you walk in a room right away. Sometimes I pick out people I want to talk to or people that are a threat. I mean, so
sure.
That is something. Yeah, you can't just do crunches and cardio to get that.
Exactly. Oh, we are so on the same page. You mentioned you'd written a book, more than one book. You mentioned a book that you'd written.
Oh, I wrote a few books. Yeah.
Okay.
I wrote,
give us the synopsis. Like, what are these books?
Oh, okay. Well, geez, look at that opening.
Commercial time.
Thank you. Well, one less victim is crime prevention, and basically exactly what you're talking about. I talk about the early stages when you're bullying in school, conditioning. Certain people are more susceptible to being bullied. And solutions. It's typical scams, and then another one I wrote was stomach flattening because everyone wants stomach. But then I got the flat gut after 50 because when you get older, you find out those aches and pains start coming, and there's certain things we do, like posture, breathing, body alignment. Good. Another, I wrote one on strength endurance sequence, which we talked about. Breathing in that. Another one. Alcoholism was always interesting to me, and I read a lot of work on it. It was called Reduce Your Alcohol Craving, because some people are biochemically more prone, not just their upbringing. They are. They have a gene that like my body rejects it very quickly. I drink a beer, I'll be back and forth to Washington 4 times, whereas other people can drink. They do, and there's a whole biochemically different. So I wrote that one as well. But what we're just Doug Setter, DougSetter.com, and you can find these books if you're interested. Yeah.
Okay. How about social media? You do any of that?
Yeah, I've got a website. I'm on Twitter, just Setter Doug. Instagram, Doug Setter, Health Solutions. And what else should I be on? I got to catch up to this
There's
stuff.
so many. The last time I pulled the list, and we're anything like that seems like it expands and then it contracts. And I think we're in an expansion right now. There are probably 15 platforms you can make an argument to be on right now. Wow. We do Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and Instagram.
Oh yeah, I'm on YouTube too.
And that's about it. About it. What kind of stuff you put up on YouTube?
YouTube, fitness stuff. Fitness, fun stuff. I have a little kickboxing, but I do mostly fitness stuff, older guy fitness stuff, how to stretch, line your body up. I did one on how to write a book.
You made a video on how to write a book.
Yeah, just talked about
that's it. Because I've always seen books on how to write a book. I've never seen a video on how to write a book. I love it.
Oh, well, actually, I talk about overcoming writer's block. And that's the whole thing. Because, again, this ties in with what I'm not good enough. No, it's good. I can't do this. What are you trying to do? And then you get into perfectionism where you think, I'm either, top karate champ or I'm a total loser. No, you can be good at martial arts.
There is room in between.
You're a martial artist. This is what martial arts do. They train. They follow this. You can do these things. So there's always little rewards. There's a whole bunch of things of getting the habit of sitting down. I'm just putting words down. Oh, but did I write that? Was I drunk? Was I crazy? Some days I've been up 4 a.m. getting all inspired, and then next day I look at it and go, oh my gosh, someone broke into my home and wrote that. But the thing is, you like so many other things, it's these small commitments that get us to where we want to go. So it's not a big deal. It's not once you write one book, it's not a big deal. It's cool. Well, you've done a book, so you've done writing?
I've done a few. Yeah, I've written. We've got a few out there, and
right on.
You just chip away at it. It's like anything. How do you eat an elephant? How do you write a book? 1 page at a time.
Yeah, and it's like do your form. Well, when am I going to go get bust heads? Do your form. Go do your form. Get your body lined up. Get your body, and then eventually you become. I like to think calmer, more confident, and you don't have that whatever personality. I don't know how to put it. But I found as I did martial arts, I became more confident. I wasn't as anxious. I wasn't as angry. I wasn't as trying to redeem myself. I was there to do martial arts. Like you're there to and pass it on. I hope I pass it on to the younger people. Let them know there's.
You're passing it on now.
Yeah,
you've said some good stuff, and so this is where we really wind up. I'll record an intro and an outro later, but you've shared a lot today. With me, with the folks listening, and I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
But how do you want to end?
Sorry?
How do you want to end? How do you get to choose how we go out here? What are the last things that you want to say to the audience?
Oh, geez, you know what? Really, I'd say that don't turn down the opportunity. Embrace it. Like don't stop listening to other people. Stop listening to know-alls that don't know anything. respect yourself, and just, you know what, take the first step. Don't be afraid of being embarrassed, because what I found this when I learned to dance too. I'm still an awkward, like a stunned bull in a china shop. But step up, because a lot of people the same thing. When I get to know, and they are scared as well. Most people are all, you know what, we're all the same in many ways. I've been to lots of different cultures. I've been traveling, and in the end, we're a lot of scared. And don't waste your time being scared. If I'm going to say anything, step up and do the best you can. No one can ask for anything else.
Thanks for watching, listening. Thanks for enjoying. I would assume if you're still here, you enjoyed it. And I hope that you took something from it, because I did. And the realizations, the wheels that are turning as a result of this episode, I recorded this a couple days ago, and there are still wheels turning from this episode. And I think that's kind of neat. I wonder if you feel the same. If you do, give us some feedback, whether it's, a post at whistlekickmartialartsradio.com. You can leave comments. You can email me, jeremy@whistlekick.com. You can find us on social media and comment below the post where we talk about this episode. We're all over the place. If you want to support us, remember, you got lots of stuff you can do. You can buy a program like our strength training program, our speed development program. You can bring me in for a seminar to your school. I guarantee everybody's going to have a great time and learn stuff. Contribute to the Patreon. Lots of options there. Thank you. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for being you. Until next time, train hard, smile, and have a great day.